This isn't a confession. This isn't a plea for help. It's just a record, maybe for someone else to make sense of. Because I can't. I got home from work at 8:42 p.m. I know because I checked the time when I locked the door behind me. One of those small habits you don't think about until later. The deadbolt clicked. The security latch slid into place. Everything was normal. By 9:30, I was on the couch, half watching some crime show, scrolling my phone. The house was quiet. No dripping faucets, no rattling pipes, just me and the low murmur of the TV. Then my phone buzzed. A notification. Motion detected. Front door. I stared at the screen for a second, waiting for my brain to catch up. I had a security camera. Just a cheap one, angled at the porch. It went off for raccoons sometimes. I tapped the notification, pulling up the live feed. The porch light flickered on. The camera view tilted slightly, just a subtle shift, like someone had brushed against it. But there was no one there. Not a person, not an animal, nothing. I exhaled, hit the reset on the app, and locked my phone. Probably a glitch. Cheap cameras do that. Then I heard it, a soft creak from inside the house. The sound came from somewhere down the hall. I sat up, muting the TV. The house settled in around me, silent but not empty. There was something in that silence, a weight to it. I told myself it was the house shifting. Wood expands, contracts, all that. But then I heard it again. Another creak, slow and deliberate. Like a footstep. I didn't move, just listened. The sound came from the direction of my bedroom. My first instinct was to check my phone. The camera feed was still up, still empty. The front door was locked. No alerts for the back door. Still, I stood up slowly, phone in one hand. I listened for anything else, breathing, rustling, anything. But the house had gone dead silent again. I took a few steps toward the hallway, every board under my feet sounding way too loud. The door to my bedroom was open. It shouldn't have been. I always closed it. I stood there staring into the dark gap, willing myself to remember if I'd left it open. That's when I saw it, a sliver of movement. The closet door was open just an inch wider than before. I couldn't breathe for a second. My brain scrambled for a logical explanation. Maybe I hadn't closed it all the way. Maybe a draft pushed it, but there was no draft. I reached for the nearest thing I could use as a weapon. A heavy glass candle on the shelf by the hallway. Not great, but better than nothing. Slowly, I stepped into the room, heart pounding. The closet door was half open now, an invitation or a warning. I reached out, fingers hovering over the handle. Then, a sound from inside. Not a rustling, not shifting. A breath. Someone was in there. I didn't think. I just acted. I yanked the door open and swung the candle with everything I had. It hit the back wall of the closet and shattered, wax and glass raining down. But the closet was empty. Nothing. No one. Just my clothes, a few boxes, the same space that had always been there. Except, not quite. Something felt off. The air inside was warm, like someone had been standing in there a second ago. I backed out slowly, my pulse still hammering. I didn't turn my back to it, didn't let myself breathe until I was back in the hallway. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was just jumpy. Then my phone buzzed again. Motion detected, front door. I turned back to the screen. The porch light was flickering again, and this time, there was someone standing at the edge of the camera's frame. I couldn't see their face, just a shape barely visible, as if they were standing right where the motion detection didn't quite reach. I froze. The figure didn't move, didn't step forward, just stood there, watching. I didn't move. I barely breathed. The figure on the screen stayed exactly where they were, just outside the motion sensor's range. just enough in the shadows that I couldn't make out their face. I stared at the feed, waiting for them to do something. A shift, a step forward, anything. They didn't. My thumb hovered over the Call 911 button in the app. But something stopped me. A stupid thought, but a real one. What do I even tell them? Someone standing outside my house? They're not trespassing, they're not trying to get in. Hell, I couldn't even prove they were looking at me. I needed more. I needed proof. I grabbed the remote and killed the TV. The house went completely silent. Then I waited. Minutes passed. 5, then 10. Still the figure didn't move. My nerves were shot. I got up, moving carefully toward the front window. The blinds were closed, but there was a gap between them. I just needed to see if they were really there or if it was a glitch. I held my breath and peeked through the slats. Nothing. The porch was empty. I checked the camera feed again. The figure was still there, standing in the exact same spot. My stomach turned. This wasn't a normal camera delay. There was no lag. It was showing me something that wasn't there. I locked my phone, hands slick with sweat. I needed to reset the camera. That meant going outside. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed at me not to, but I had to know. If I sat in here all night watching a faulty feed, I'd lose my mind. I grabbed my keys, slipped on my shoes. I was quick. Out the door, onto the porch, straight to the camera mounted beside the door frame. I reached up, fingers on the power switch. Then I felt it. A breath of warm air on the back of my neck. 11. I spun around so fast I nearly tripped. No one. Nothing but the street, dark and empty. I stood there, heart hammering, every part of me screaming to get inside. But I forced myself to stay, to turn off the camera, then back on again. The porch light flickered. The lens clicked as the feed refreshed. I pulled out my phone, opened the app. No figure. It was gone. I told myself I was seeing things, that the shadow on the TV screen was a trick of the light, that I was just exhausted, paranoid, but I couldn't turn around. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to move, to spin, to run, to do something, but I just stood there staring at the reflection. And then, it moved. Not fast, not a sudden jump scare. It just stepped forward, closer. I saw the shape of a person, but not quite right. The proportions were off, like someone was wearing my skin but didn't know how to fit into it properly. I don't remember much after that. When I came to, it was 2:12 a.m. I was lying on my living room floor. My head hurt. My phone was shattered a few feet away. The front door was still locked. The cameras were still recording. No footage of anything unusual, no proof, no evidence. Just me, alone in my house. Exactly where I was before. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if I fell, if I blacked out, if I imagined all of it. All I know is, I don't trust my own reflection anymore. I never considered myself superstitious, but that night changed everything. It was a chilly Friday evening and I had the house to myself. My roommate Jake had left for the weekend to visit his family. I planned to enjoy some solitude, maybe catch up on reading or binge watch a new series. Around 10 p.m., as I settled into the couch with a blanket and a cup of tea, I heard a faint knocking sound. At first, I dismissed it, thinking it was just the old pipes or the house settling. But then it came again, 3 distinct knocks, this time from the front door. I wasn't expecting anyone. Curious but cautious, I approached the door and peeked through the peephole. No one was there. I opened the door slightly, the cold air rushing in, and looked around. The street was empty, illuminated only by the dim glow of the streetlights. Shrugging it off, I locked the door and returned to the couch. Minutes later, the knocking resumed, louder and more insistent. My heart raced. I checked the peephole again. Still nothing. Feeling a mix of fear and frustration, I called out, "Who's there?" No response. I decided to ignore it, convincing myself it was probably some prankster. As I tried to focus on my book, a sudden crash echoed from the kitchen. I jumped, spilling my tea. Grabbing my phone, I cautiously made my way to the kitchen. The sight that greeted me sent shivers down my spine. A glass had fallen from the counter and shattered on the floor, but how? I hadn't been in the kitchen since dinner, and there were no open windows or drafts. I cleaned up the mess, all the while feeling an unsettling presence, as if someone was watching me. I couldn't shake the feeling, but I tried to rationalize it. Maybe the glass was precariously placed and finally tipped over. Returning to the living room, I noticed the front door was slightly ajar. Panic set in. I was certain I had locked it. Gathering courage, I checked every room, every closet, under every bed, nothing. The house was empty. I secured the door once more, double-checking the lock. Determined not to let my imagination get the best of me, I decided to distract myself with a movie. As the film played, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Shadows seemed to dance in the corners of my vision, but every time I turned to look, there was nothing. Around midnight, just as I was beginning to doze off, my phone buzzed. A text message from Jake. "Hey, did you move the stuff in my room?" Confused, I replied, "No, why?" He responded, "I set up a camera in my room to monitor my plants. It just alerted me to movement." A chill ran down my spine. I hadn't been in his room and no one else was supposed to be here. Hesitantly, I approached Jake's bedroom door. It was closed, just as he had left it. I opened it slowly, the hinges creaking. The room was dark, but everything appeared in place. Still, the sense of unease was overwhelming. I called Jake, my voice trembling. "Your room looks fine. Maybe it's a glitch with the camera?" He sighed. "Maybe, but it's never done that before. Just keep an eye out, okay?" I agreed, trying to sound braver than I felt. Sleep was out of the question. I sat in the living room, every creak and groan of the house amplified in the silence. Around 2 a.m., the knocking returned, this time from the back door. My stomach dropped. I tiptoed to the kitchen, peering out the window. The backyard was empty, the darkness pressing against the glass. I couldn't take it anymore. I called the police, explaining that someone might be trying to break into my house. They arrived within minutes. 2 officers who took my concerns seriously. They inspected the property, finding no signs of forced entry or footprints around the doors. One officer, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, asked if I had experienced anything like this before. I shook my head, feeling a bit foolish. He nodded. "Sometimes our minds play tricks on us, especially when we're alone, but it's always better to be safe. Call us if anything else happens." After they left, the house felt even more oppressive. I left all the lights on, hoping to ward off whatever was causing these disturbances. The rest of the night passed without incident, but sleep eluded me. The next morning, Jake returned home. I recounted the events, half expecting him to laugh. Instead, he looked concerned. "You know," he began, "the previous tenant mentioned something about weird occurrences, but I thought he was just messing with me." We decided to do some research about the house. Digging through old records and news articles, we discovered that years ago a man had lived here alone and had died under mysterious circumstances. Some neighbors believed the house was haunted, but over time the stories faded. I don't know what to believe. Maybe it was all in my head, a concoction of loneliness and an overactive imagination. Or perhaps some remnants of the past still lingered within these walls. Either way, I haven't spent a night alone in that house since.